You're on the Six Screens Telenetwork, earning the reputation of giving all the right ingredients, uninhibited, in exposing the hard, cold facts about the Watchtower Society. Disney.
Well, there you all are. And my friends, it's so good to see so many coming in on our icebreaker program. Anne Marie from California has a program called Touched by the Tentacles of the Watchtower on the Six Screens Telenetwork. And she's on with us right now. And she does a marvelous job explaining how it was being involved with the Watchtower organization. Now, friends, some people were really touched by the tentacles, and they really were hurt badly through all types of difficulties, whether it be emotional, spiritual, terrible situations for people that have been involved with this organization. And also, she's going to be talking tonight about how people recover and how they can feel better after they leave the Watchtower. So, by all means, Anne Marie is going to help you tonight, one way or the other. So, hello, Anne Marie, you there with us?
Hello, my brother Rick. I'm here with you. Happy Six Screen Saturday once again.
Well, it comes up so fast, Anne Marie. It's almost like just yesterday that we've done a program, but boy, I'll tell you, it's just unreal how fast time goes by. But the good thing about it, the witnesses would at least say, is one day closer to Armageddon, right?
Well, I don't know about Armageddon. I don't worry about Armageddon anymore.
The witnesses, I mean, that's what they used to think. Okay, another day, but one day closer to Armageddon. Well, I got news for you. You're right, Anne Marie. They're going to be in for a big surprise when Armageddon really doesn't show up. All your life, can you imagine how they scared us with that doctrine and how they had us really just frightened over the whole thing? And I mean, really getting to the Kingdom Hall and going out in service and being a goody two shoes so that, we wouldn't get hit with a hailstone during Armageddon, And
no matter how good you were, no matter how hard you tried, no matter how many hours you spent in service, no matter how hard you tried to be the quote unquote good Jehovah's Witness, there was always that fear that you weren't doing enough. Oh, you didn't go out in service enough. Their blood will be on your hands. Oh, you messed up. It doesn't matter if you served 30, 40, 50 years. It only takes one thing to get Jehovah to get you disfellowshipped, and now it's too late for you.
Anne Marie, there's so many mess ups, people's lives that have been totally messed up. And even on our news program tonight, we're going to have a good subject we're going to talk about. We kind of touched on it before, but lately what I've been seeing, and as I'm going into researching the organization today, one of the big problems that's popping up in the organization is single sisters are really having a hard time finding single brothers. It's unbelievable, and some of the things we're going to be discussing tonight on the news is really gonna give you a bird's eye view of how difficult it is for many young women in the organization.
Well, I know how it was for me, being a single young mother, single and poor and uneducated and no car. I remember people telling me, don't think you're ever going to have a brother look at you. You're damaged goods. You're used merchandise. They want the young, fresh ones, 15, 16, 17. If they're 18 and really hot, they'll charm them and marry them real quick. I was told that all the time by sisters and brothers, mostly sisters.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, it's a hot topic because, it's really a problem. And even the Watchtower organization itself is beginning to recognize it. And many are thinking that the organization, now it's not me saying this is a fact, it's just I'm telling people here listening that many are thinking that, and I have people writing to me thinking that the next move the Watchtower is going to make, or in the near future, is allow sisters to actually get married to unbelievers in hopes that the sister can kind of recruit the unbeliever into the cult. So these are things that are popping around the internet, and we're going to discuss it tonight. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it makes sense to me because even before a sister, if she married outside the Watchtower, as long as she was quote unquote a good Jehovah's Witness, she didn't get necessarily disfellowshipped or on public reproof, but they got meaner and meaner. So the governing body has to be realistic when they make their choice. Either we let them find that nice guy, probably there is a nice guy that they know at work or whatever, and we don't want them to leave, so maybe she can bring him in. But if we make her get in trouble, then we lose her and the possible JW that she marries outside the Watchtower.
It's a roll of the dice. It's a roll of the dice, but they're looking at any way they can to keep people in. And I think they're even willing to go out on a limb with this, hoping that, it doesn't backfire, but things are going to take place in the future. Now, I'm not saying this is, I'm just saying this is what I hear going on. But there's going to be a lot of things taking place in the future that are going to rock the witness world. It's already being done. Well, I don't want to steal your program from you here, Anne Marie, so I'll cut out and you do your thing. You're on with us. Are you there, Anne Marie? Well, I don't know what happened to Anne Marie.
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. All right. This okay.
Sorry,
There
Rick.
she is. Yeah, there
Rick?
she is. I'm gonna cut out and
I
let you.
forgot to unmute.
That's okay.
Sorry,
That can happen easily.
Is
It
it
happens.
okay if I?
Go ahead.
Well, especially when you have a pea brain like mine. May I comment on one thing you mentioned?
Sure.
About
Yeah.
the tanking attendance in
Yeah.
the conventions.
Right.
What's funny is that the few that are there, my brother, so many of them, you could just tell by their faces. They don't want to be there. They're like, when is it going to be done? When can we go? But a lot of them are actually actively texting on their phone. I'm here at the convention. These guys are full of garbage. They're telling lies. They're spewing their garbage. I would say probably almost half, if not half, of those who are actually physically in attendance at the conventions are like not fooled anymore. They're PMOs, they're physically in, but mentally they're like, I can't wait to figure out how to get out of this stupid religion, this cult. That's it.
I agree with you. I really, really do. So you add that into the equation, and really, how much longer is it going to take where we don't see the Watchtower in business as we know them if it continues to go like this, Anne Marie? Good girl. Thank you for the comment. That's good. All right. I'm dropping out. It's your program. Go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you so much, my brother. I think it's the 18th. I want to welcome everyone in. Today is my most favorite day of the week, Six Screen Saturday. It is May 18th, 2024. This is the show touched by the tentacles of the Watchtower. And as always, I always want to welcome in my brothers and sisters. And if you're new to the Six Screens, this is a safe place for you. If you're a PIMQ, physically in, but mentally you're questioning, you're scared, you're afraid that Satan is trying to take you away from Jehovah, trying to make you be unfaithful. You know what? If you had to join in an organization in order to be right with Jehovah God, don't you think that Jesus would have mentioned it? One of the apostles, it would be somewhere in the Bible. No, no, no. And if you're a PMO physically in, but mentally you're out, they can't fool you anymore, but you still have to show yourself in the Watchtower meetings and so on, still have to play the game. You're welcome as well. You know, on Reddit, we have a lot of ex-JWs and current ones who are in the organization. Some of them are unsure. Some of them are PIMQs and they're scared, saying this is the first time I'm posting. I don't know who else to ask. Because we all know by now, if you have doubts or questions, you can get labeled as an apostate. So today, if you guys don't mind, I want to talk about one post in particular that was on the subreddit, XJWs, on the subreddit of Reddit. We all love Reddit. And I think, to me, the subreddit on Reddit, the XJW subreddit, is a really good barometer of just how quickly the Watchtower is losing members, because you cannot hide numbers. We know that the governing body, the Watchtower organization, has no qualms about lying, twisting the truth, and fudging numbers. 8.5 million people? I don't think so, unless they're counting twins and every baby born and everybody who's pregnant with a baby, because that's just not true. They're coming out too quickly. The last I looked on Reddit for how many actual members there were on the subreddit for XJWs was 100,000. And then somebody 4 hours earlier than that post said, actually, there are only 999 and 60 something, like there were 30 something more to go or 60 more to go, and it would be evenly 100,000. 2 weeks ago, I heard it was 98,000. And maybe a few weeks before that, it was 97,000 or 95,000. They're coming in really, really quickly. So I'm hoping that you guys don't mind listening in. I was trying to think of a way to come up with an outline or a subject, but basically I want to look at the evidence that I find on the internet, specifically one posting in the subreddit XJW that was posted about maybe 12 hours ago, not even a day ago. And then one story of an elder's wife, and she was also a pioneer, and how she was treated. Mostly I want to go through the comments. There were over 100 and some odd comments to this sister. So if you guys can be patient with me, which you always are, and I appreciate it. One moment. This subreddit poster wrote, "The honest-hearted are the ones who lead." And he wrote, so many times people here on this subreddit show that they were actually believing the good news. He said, guys, I know people who stole from other Jehovah's Witnesses, fellow Jehovah's Witnesses. These people who stole from their brothers and sisters are still ministerial servants, elders, and pioneers. They see no problem with their hypocrisy. He said, I sold furniture to pay back a brother that I owed money to. I'm sure a lot of you guys have stories where your honesty and moral integrity cost you as a JW. And I think you guys have all heard the story of Dick Borgie, one of our Six Screens brothers, who had a lot of money stolen from him by his own family member. I believe it was his brother-in-law. And nobody would do anything about it. He said, maybe you were one of the people who actually told the elders and confessed that you watched pornography. And the elder that you were confessing to was probably watching porn himself. Or if you didn't pioneer during the circuit overseer's visit, you got chastised. But you didn't do it because it would seem hypocritical only to make the effort when a man came to visit the organization. He goes on and says, and of course, everyone here pays the ultimate price for their integrity, rejection and shunning and condemnation from family and friends. Elders neglect their wives so that they can lecture other people about being good Jehovah's Witnesses. Pioneers stand at their carts all day so that they can judge and gossip about others. You stopped doing these things because you wanted to be truthful and honest, and now you're a wicked apostate. So on this Saturday, pour yourself some coffee. Make sure you relax. Look out the window, enjoy the day, and remember, you're a good person. I thought that was a great post. Any comments, my brothers, my sisters? Well, all righty then. We're a little slow today, and that's okay because this show is for you. I am seeing the subreddit, ex-Jehovah's Witness subreddit, again, as a barometer to see how, give me a good gauge on how fast they're coming out. They are just coming out. And, you know, Rick has been saying it for, oh my God, so long. And I know a lot of people think he might be exaggerating. Our brother Rick doesn't need to exaggerate because everything he says is true. He is always on the internet. Whoever's not muted and clearing their throat, if you have something to say, please feel free to speak up. You know, speak up. If you don't want to speak, would you mind muting yourself? I appreciate that so much. Again, people, my brothers, my sisters, this is your show. If
hello.
Hello, my brother Ken. How are you?
Oh, not too bad. Nice day over here today. I hope it's nice weather over there too. And I had kind of a long day this morning and everything like that. And I'm tuning in right now and listening to the program with interest. And I'd like to comment on a couple things here. The Watchtower Society always, when they talk to me, when they used to come over to my place, they used to always say that they wanted to reach out to all of the honest-hearted people and all that. But an honest-hearted person cannot even, honest-hearted person cannot even stay within a religious society this day and age, let alone the Watchtower Society, that they're so hypocritical and so forth and everything like that. And another comment I'd like to make, too, about, I can't believe how foolish somebody would be, but I guess they are that foolish. The Watchtower Society used to go to their, and we heard these stories so many times we can't even count them on 6 screens. I've heard them, too, before out here. They say that you need to go out and warn people that Armageddon is coming, because if you don't, you're responsible for their life, or the blood is going to be on your hands. Now, how in the heck can Watchtower Society, if you're listening, would you kind of please explain that to me and everything like that? Because it doesn't make any sense and so forth. Why is it that the person at the bottom of the barrel here on the planet Earth that's just got maybe a thimble full of knowledge, religious knowledge and so forth and all that, how is it that they're responsible to go out there and warn all the people of this Armageddon, and that the people's lives is going to be on them? It doesn't make any sense to me.
I'm hearing you, Ken.
Yeah.
I believe it, so I don't even have an answer for that, because I was one of those idiots that sat there in the hall and at the conventions, and every word I agreed, especially when they were like, how sad would it be if you woke up tomorrow morning and it was after Armageddon and you're walking down the street and you see the dead bodies of all your neighbors and people that you knew that worked at the local grocery store, and the people that work at the dentist and your kid's teacher, and they're all laying there dead, and you're walking by their dead bodies saying, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Their blood will be on your hand. I remember that brother saying that. It was like 45 years ago. And it's like, that's how they are. They guilt you. They manipulate you. They control your mind. And no matter how hard you try in every way, detail, it's never enough. It's never enough. It's never enough. And again, did Jesus ever say, oh, by the way, about 2,000 years from now, there's going to be an organization. Now, they're going to be full of shit, and they're going to lie, and they're going to twist, and they're going to teach some crazy stuff. But you have to join that organization and believe whatever they tell you. And when they change their understanding, you had better adjust your thinking, and you better serve them without question, and you better obey them, and you better remain loyal, or my Father is going to destroy you and your children and your little dog too. Can you imagine? Is that what Jesus preached? I don't see that anywhere in the Bible. He never said anything about joining an organization or any kind of religion. In fact, didn't he walk out of what you might call God's organization of his day? He walked out after he obeyed every law, fulfilled every mandate, regulation, procedure, and so on, and said, come follow me. I am the way. I am the truth. I am the life. You know,
well,
I'm
go ahead.
fool. No, I'm just saying, how were we so fooled? Go ahead, my brother.
Well, I think we do have an answer. You know what Mr. Farron says just about on a weekly basis here when he's talking about Watchtower doctrine? You can't make sense out of nonsense. And the doctrine, as I've always said too, it's phony. It's total and absolute insanity. So, yeah, I think we have our answer on that. So.
Well, easy for you to say because that nonsense made perfect sense to me. And that is where the evidence of the mind control comes in, my brother Ken. If we had had our brain working correctly like they are now, we would have seen what you call the nonsense, and it is nonsense. But we were submitted to very subtle, subliminal, hypnotic programming from the get-go. And Satan gave us the best example. Eve didn't feel in any way threatened at all. She didn't feel wary of the snake talking to her because the snake was so smooth and reasonable. He didn't lie to her. All he said was, is it really so that God has said that you must not eat of the tree of good and bad? And she didn't feel threatened, and she answered him calmly. And what is she doing? Completely disobeying, just like that, the only law that God gave her, and getting her husband to do the same thing. That's how they work. It's so smooth and so reasonable. And we just like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Oh, Turn me into a brain-dead Watchtower zombie drone. Did you want to add anything else to that, my brother Ken?
Oh, yeah, if there's no callers coming in, there's a story I would like to tell you along, the Six Screens Watchtower. I may repeat this on different programs, but I'm going to start here now tonight. I don't recall if I told it before or not, but I want to tell you the story about this minister there that he said that I am so tired of listening to these politics and negativity going around. He says, our church is going to have a revival meeting and a big convention, he says, and if we catch anybody talking politics at that church convention, that we're going to boot them right out. And this one guy was listening intently to everything he said, and he went out and he bought himself a big bundle of baseball hats for men, for women, for kids, and all that. And so anyway, they were going out, and they had the convention and so forth, and he goes out and he starts passing out these baseball hats and so forth. Sir, would you like a baseball hat? Ma'am, yeah, would you like a baseball hat? Young man, would you like a baseball hat? Young lady. And they were grabbing him right and left. He was wondering if he'd even have enough of them. And so pretty soon the ushers start coming down the street and everything like that. And they stopped him and they yelled at him. They said, sir, he says, we told you there was to be no politicking at this convention whatsoever. He said, and you've got the audacity, he says, to be passing out MAGA hats. He says, in all due respect, he says, it's not a MAGA hat. He says, take a look. He says, it's MAGCA. He says, what the heck is that supposed to stand for? Make America God's country again.
Well, that sounds good. Is that a true story, Ken?
No, that's that little story I'm telling you. I don't know where I heard it, but I heard it a while back. And when I told it at a meeting one time, this one guy said he was going to make some bumper stickers like that.
Well, I think that's a good story, and thank you, Ken, very much.
Yeah. Well, another thing we can remember too, and just in closing right here for a minute, another thing we can remember too is we can get the point across that the Watchtower Society is not our God, and the Kingdom Hall is not our church.
Yeah, I remember that quote from you. That's a good one. Okay,
well, thanks for the time, Anne Marie, and we'll keep listening here with interest. So, hopefully, you get another caller. If we get another caller, and hit *6, please.
Thank you, Ken. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody knows to hit *6. I appreciate that. Would anybody
Hi, Anne
like to
Marie.
comment? Hello, Constance. How are you, my sister?
This is Susan.
Oh,
Was
This is, I
Constance?
just now realized that.
Oh,
Why am I
okay,
blending
honey.
you guys? Hi, my sister. I know who you are.
Hi.
I was just seeing if you were paying attention.
Okay. Well, I wanted to bring something up that interested me a little bit when you were talking about it before, and it was about sisters getting married. And, you know, when you and I were young, we talked about this before. It was hard to find someone that was decent to marry, even, 50 years ago. So I can imagine what it's like now. But I was wondering, the Watchtower is going to have to justify this policy of letting sisters, being a little more liberal. And I think what they're going to say is if they're studying, you could be interested in them, and while he's studying, you can marry them. But even if they don't end up being a witness, the children have to be promised to be raised as witnesses, just like the Catholic Church. So I think that's how the Watchtower is going to justify that eventually. What do you think?
Well, they were that way from when I remember, my sister. I remember way back then. I mean, I haven't been in the organization for 38 years. Next month will be 38 years next month
Wow.
since I left. And that's the way it was. That's the way it was. If, you met somebody and you really felt strongly about them, the sister would be counseled, usually privately. Well, sister, blah, blah, blah. And they would assume, of course, he was a good guy and boo, boo, boo. Well, if he, the old, I don't know if you remember this or they were still saying it when you were coming in, but they used to say if they have the right heart condition, they will listen when you witness to them. That was the excuse. That's how they started to separate you from your friends and your family and anybody else that you thought was a good person. They would tell you, well, how you can tell if they really have the right heart condition, they'll listen to you and they'll want to know more and they'll want to serve Jehovah and they will take their stand on Jehovah's side, which is AKA give up everything, turn their back on everything and join the Watchtower and believe whatever they're taught. That's always how it was. I don't know if they're going to change or if they ever did change.
Well, what I'm wondering is now, could they get married in the Kingdom Hall if he wasn't a brother,
No.
a baptized brother?
No.
Yeah, that's
No.
the point. What I'm thinking is they might even allow Kingdom Hall marriages as long as he's studying. Now, if eventually he stops studying, they'll say, well, it's his fault or whatever, and we won't fault you, sister, but your children have to come to the Kingdom Hall. They have to be raised as Jehovah's Witnesses. That's maybe how it used to be, but because there were a lot of sisters that didn't have husbands. I mean, they were married before they became a witness. So I'm wondering if they're going to allow marriages if he's studying and if you promise to raise any children as witnesses. And that's just a thought. Putting it all back on you. If it's your fault.
Always.
Yeah.
And now I need to, for my own self, clarify for myself. When I was in, they never married anybody in the Kingdom Hall unless both parties getting married were in good standing. In other words, they were both baptized witnesses and both had proven themselves to be faithful Jehovah's Witnesses. That means there was no mark against them. Are you saying that maybe at some time, if somebody was studying, would be married in the Kingdom Hall to a faithful and good standing Jehovah's Witness?
Anne-Marie, what other choice do they have? These sisters are either going to leave or they can stay and get married with the, quote unquote possibility that the man will become a brother. But I remember I was in Chicago, which is different than California maybe, but they wouldn't allow anybody to get near a sister, especially if she was a pioneer. if they weren't a witness, and usually in good standing. And if they weren't in good standing, the sister would be counseled.
I understand that. What my question was, Susan, I want to make sure I understand what you said earlier correctly. Are you saying, or did you say that at some point in your memory, they married a good standing Jehovah's Witness to someone who was not baptized, but who was studying in the Kingdom Hall?
No, I'm saying eventually that's what they'll have to do. They didn't do it.
So that's a no? Nuts and
Right.
bolts. Is that a no to my question? Okay, I just want to make sure I understand. And what you're saying, if they have to do that eventually, that does make sense. I just like, what? Because I remember my son, who was raised in the organization by his dumb, hypnotically programmed Watchtower drone mother. He was, when I finally got out of the organization, my kids were teenagers, and I said, you know what? Forget everything. All I care about is I raise you with honesty. You need to go out there and practice being an adult. I want to be here for you. Make good decisions. You already know right from wrong, blah, blah, blah. Well, they had a good time in, the last years of their being a teenager. But one of my sons went back to the organization, and because his girlfriend that he had a child with had gotten grabbed hold of by a mutual friend of ours, and she believed it all. And she said, if you don't start studying with me during my study, you're going to never see me again, and you'll never see our son again. And I was oh my God, what a horrible thing. Well, she was mad because in her mind, oh my God, you knew this all the time and you walked away from Jehovah. You know Armageddon's going to come any day, and you walked away from Jehovah's organization. So now
they taught her that. They taught her that. That's why
they taught her that. Oh, no doubt, yes. So he ended up.
Marie, can I interject here? May I interject briefly?
You're already doing it. Go ahead.
Okay, then I'll interject.
Don't forget that Susan has not finished yet. Go ahead, please.
I want to hear King of Dot.
I just wanted to say, the Bible says, marry only in the Lord. Which Lord were they talking about? Jesus, obviously. These people aren't claiming to be Muslim or something, are they? I mean, most of the people they're marrying are in other religions claiming to worship Jesus. That was what I wanted to say. That's why it's so bizarre what they're doing. Thank you.
King of the Dots,
a good point.
King of the Dots, that's a great point. Thank you so much for being there and for your comment. And now, don't mind me, I'm ADD. What I wanted to say is that my son went back to the organization because of the study, but both of them thoroughly entrenched, thoroughly believing, going out in service, cleaning up their life. In other words, they were living the life of a dedicated Jehovah's Witness, but they were not baptized, and they were engaged to get married. They were not allowed to get married in the Kingdom Hall. They had to get married somewhere else. And so that's why I was checking with you, Susan. And I just wanted to say that. That's all. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you, Susan. Is there anything you would like to add?
No, that's just my point. They're going to have to do something. That's just an idea that I threw out there. But if anyone else has better suggestions, I'd like to hear it.
Hey, Susan. Absolutely. Go ahead, dear.
I was just going to say that getting married in the Kingdom Hall is not the prettiest, most fabulous place to get married. There's a million beautiful courthouses in this country. You can have a pretty dress, and you can have flowers, and you can take photos with good photographers. Again, they're using the word allowed, and we're adult grown people, and a legal ceremony with a justice of the peace is just as nice, and a reception someplace with people you know is just as nice. And on a sad note, when you have your final last day, there's chapels where they have the funeral director, and those buildings are just as quaint, and someone can stand up and say a few words. So they act like they have a corner of the market on everything, and they simply do not. And they give bad health advice. You could die from lack of blood transfusions. They've told people with neurological conditions that they're demon possessed. They may have epilepsy or some other neurological issue. They do not give good advice. They are not following the Bible, and some of their advice may even be a hazard to you.
Ooh, that's a good one, Pixie. Remember where I think they had a Wake article, and they were telling everybody they shouldn't be on drugs or be wary of drugs. And there were all kinds of mentally messed up sisters and brothers that were on medication for their bipolar or whatever, schizophrenia, or who knows whatever they had. And a lot of them went off their medication. Do you remember
They
that?
were probably better without it. They probably should listen to their doctor. But they've got all kinds of crazy advice. I think the only thing that Russell was right on is a good stainless steel pan. I'm not keen on a cheap aluminum pan, but most of the things that they're telling people, they're way off.
You're so right, Pixie.
And again, the word allowed. If you are above the age of 18 or 21, look at the law and look at what truly is allowed. You can get married at the justice of the peace. You've been told that you can dress yourself since you were 7. You don't need to be allowed to wear a pair of slacks or leave your jacket in the car. So,
Dixie, you always bring up the good, sensible stuff. I love it.
Well, grammar is super important. Look at the grammar of what they're saying, whether it's a biblical text where they reinterpreted the scripture. It says, to whom do we go? Not where do we go? And then look again at the grammar in their headlines of their Watchtower articles. They have bamboozled us for generations. That's the end of my comment for this evening.
Pixie. Oh, no,
Have
no,
a good
no.
one.
I don't want you to leave. I love your comments. Please. Oh, my God. That's so good. Like you said, allowed. Oh, my God. I never thought of it before. I was picked on without mercy because I was, it never occurred to me to say, excuse me, who the F are you? You're going to
Well, you don't even have to say the F, but, who are these people? Who are these people? I had a ballet body. I was a size 3 and 3-inch heels with beautiful hair. And some guy comes and tries to push my dad out of being in a position of responsibility when the elders came in. And he said, that my V-neck T-shirt, which was modest, I had too much cleavage. I didn't have any cleavage. I'm not going to say I was a flat-chested girl, but I was a ballet girl. There was not much there of anything of me. So they would pick on sisters for nothing and give bad body images to beautiful young women and all kinds of things. They have high incidence of eating disorders. They have high incidence of people giving prescription drugs to these sisters. The story of the sisters has yet to be told fully. Now, when I read Handmaid's Tale, and they'll read it to you on YouTube, there's an audiobook free. It's a fiction. The lady wrote television in the 50s in New York. It's a brilliant novel. But I thought, how does she know about the witnesses? For some reason, that novel just struck me. So your listeners might want to listen to it on YouTube for free. And there's all kinds of things that we all went through.
Well, Pixie, that is a really good point. The role of the sister's story has yet to be told. And you know what? Maybe, if it's okay, maybe I'll try to do that next Touched by the Tentacles, because I think that we haven't really focused. I mean, we've mentioned it offhand about this or that. But there is one story that I ran across on YouTube. A sister who is now out. She was the elder's wife and a pioneer and was just constantly berated. Usually if you're married, and especially if your husband is a good standing JW or he's a ministerial servant and an elder, which she was saying when her husband became elder, things just got harder because he actually was PIMQ and she didn't know it. He was physically in, but mentally he was very concerned. He was questioning. And but anyway, how she was treated, I was blown away.
Oh,
And
I should write a
kinda
book, but I'm not going to. I did have my dad in my corner that day. He did look at the young elder who was half his age and just showed up out of nowhere, and he said, "Leave my family alone." That's what a man is supposed to say. But you know, I was such a witness that I didn't even want little Christmas trees printed on my Ziploc bags.
I'm hearing you.
I mean, you know, it's a Ziploc bag. Nobody's seeing it, but you know, they had the one with the little trees printed on it or something. So that would be a funny one. You know, you're a super duper witness if you're afraid to get the Ziploc bags with the little trees on them.
Yeah, I understand that. It's amazing. I think that the more, I will just say the word indoctrinated, the more you're indoctrinated you are, the more the silliest little dumb doodah detail will trigger your conscience. You know?
I was born in. I didn't know any better. I really didn't. We have to be kinder to ourselves now. Well, I'm going to let you take some more calls. I'm going to put my feet up and listen tonight and have a good time.
Well, as always, I thank you so much for your thoughts, Pixie, and I think I'm going to really concentrate on what you brought out, that the stories of the sisters and what they went through has never really been told, and I'm thinking that's what I want to talk about next show. But this show, I wanted to just talk about one particular sister, but not so much her story. It is the comments. There were over like 150 comments, and they were all giving glimpses of what life was like in their home with their elders, with fellow JWs, ministerial servants, circuit overseers. And when I read through the comments, I said, oh my God, I have to tell this on the big screen. Is there anybody who would like to comment thus far? I don't want to go ahead. Go ahead, Darcy. Hello, Anne-Marie. Yes. Hello. Hi, honey. It's Connie. How you doing today? Hi, hon. Hi. You know, Anne-Marie, I know how much you love Reddit, and I just wanted to make a comment. Rich and I wanted to make a comment. We were reading Reddit this week, which we don't very often. But anyway, there was yesterday there was a very interesting post. Is it all right if we share it? It's tied in with the of course. That's okay, dear. Anyway, I'll start it off, and Rich can add to it. But you know, we've had our shows on marriage and Watchtower marriages and so forth. So how it was is it was a couple. They were both baptized witnesses. They were married, and it got to the point where the marriage was just going down the hill. They didn't go into details, but it got to the point that they not only didn't like each other, but they hated each other. That's what this brother who made the post on Reddit yesterday. And he said it was so bad that the husband and wife decided they wanted to have a divorce. Well, apparently her father was an elder, and the elder, the father-in-law, was an elder in their congregation. Okay, so anyway, they wanted to end up getting a divorce, and the father-in-law said to his son-in-law, he says, well, you need to say that you've committed adultery so that my daughter can be free to remarry. And the brother said, no, that's not what I'm going to do, because I haven't committed adultery and I'm not going to lie. So let Rich tell you the rest, because it's an incredible story.
So the elder had a tracking device put on the bottom of his car. It's called an air tag. So they know where he's going all the time. And they found out where he lived. And because he moved out of the house, the wife and him split up. He got an apartment or renting a house or wherever. And he didn't want the elders to know where he lived. Didn't want them knocking on the door or anything like that. So they found out where he lived because they followed the AirTag, which is a device that sends off a signal, and you can follow that signal right to where somebody lives. It's it's a transducer actually, but anyway, you can find out where he lived, and what they were going to do is they were going to spy on him and see if a woman was going to come to his apartment or his house. And if they could get two witnesses to view that, then they would say that he committed adultery, so that the daughter could have a scriptural divorce and she could be free to remarry. And he was pretty upset with this. He talked to the police about it, and he got a restraining order against the elder. And he told the elder that if you even look at me the wrong way, I'll have you arrested. And here's Connie.
Yeah, so first of all, the elder, who was the father-in-law, he had absolutely no problem in telling his son-in-law, you need to lie and say that you committed adultery. And it seems like the brother wanted to just basically have nothing to do with the organization. He just wanted to have his own life. He and his wife wanted a divorce and go their merry way. But it just goes to show, Anne Marie, how some of these elders, many of them actually, are stalkers. They're absolute stalkers to this guy. And when you have a tracer on your car, you don't even know it. And what happened is this brother who had the car, he got a notification on his cell phone, and he thought, this is strange. And it was a notification that there was a tracer. And he didn't think anything about it. It was like 2 weeks before. Then it popped up again as a notification. He thought, now, wait a minute, what in the world's going on? And apparently he had some tools, and he thought, it must be some kind of tag that's on my tools. And then he thought, I guess he talked to somebody, and they said, no, somebody's put a tracer on your car. So he got underneath the car, and he went way up under the car, and it was hidden so far, and he pulled it out, and there was like the last 4 digits of a phone number. And he thought, well, who in the heck would do this to me? So he looked under his contacts to see maybe if he might have known who it was, and sure enough, it was his father-in-law's cell phone. It was the last 4 digits of his father-in-law's cell phone. So, and he had heard this beep, 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 type of thing when he was driving the car.
Is there a short version? Is there a short version? Because I've been on.
That's it, honey.
Over. Well, no. I think what you're bringing out is very important. It's just I kind of prefer a shorter version. I know what you're talking about, Constance and Rich. You guys brought out something nasty, really horrible. The elders not only are stalkers and they get other people to stalk Jehovah's Witnesses, but for an elder and ex-father-in-law, basically a family member, to think it's okay to go and buy an AirTag, which is basically a tracker that the man had no idea had been put. He said the guy who put that tracker under the chassis of his car had to have been some kind of somebody who steals vehicles. You know how they have like a syndicate where they track really cool vehicles to steal when they know where it is and when it's just sitting there, and then they go steal it. Not only was the tracker hidden so deeply under the chassis, but it was wrapped or encased in a magnetic, some kind of container. And you're so right. I just wanted to know if we could kind of wrap it up, but I do appreciate what you're saying.
Oh, that was it.
I don't mean to be rude. God bless you both. God bless you both. But I really, really wanted to get to this elder's wife that I was trying to talk about, but I know our time is almost up, so thank you. Is there anybody who would like to comment on what Rich and Connie brought out, how the elders are stalkers and how rude? They have no, what would you call, personal boundaries? They do whatever they want, and they always have an excuse. They don't have any conscience. Would anybody like to comment on what Connie was saying?
Anne Marie?
Yeah, hi, sister.
I was just wondering, how can they justify being the one true religion and breaking the law. What Bible principle are they using? I mean, I'm not trying to bring up Christianity here. I'm just saying, if they're supposed to be the faithful and discreet slave, would a faithful and discreet slave put a tracker on your car?
They would if you read verse 48 of Matthew 24. Remember, verse 48 is the scripture where Jesus identifies who the faithful and that the faithful and discreet slave is an evil slave. Nobody ever brings that out. The faithful, the Watchtower elders, governing body claims, well, Jesus said that he would appoint a faithful and discreet slave, a group of men who would oversee, blah, blah, blah. Well, I always have two questions. The slave supposedly, if this is real and not just a parable, which it was, but the slave was supposed to be appointed over the householder's household until the householder came back, the master came back. Well, they've been saying that Jesus came back since 1914 or whatever, invisibly or not. I don't know how they got past that one. How did I swallow that one? But if Jesus already returned, the master, then why aren't we following the master instead of the discreet slave? But aside from that question, they never quote verse 48. They only go 45 through 47. Who really is the faithful and discreet slave who is appointed over his master's belonging until the master returns? And the master, upon returning, says, oh, good and faithful slave, and will reward him, and blah, blah, blah. And they stop there. But Jesus
verse
went on.
47, you're right, explains. Verse 37 explains who they are. Because it says who really is the faithful and discreet slave? Okay, that's the question. So if you're faithful, you do one thing. If you're not faithful, you do another. Well, when they do things that are not faithful, they're showing what kind of slave they are. They can't get around that. And that's the scripture, Matthew 24:45, that they use to hold people to Jehovah's Witnesses. We're the only ones that have the right interpretation of the Bible. Nobody else has what we have. So if you don't listen to us, you're going to die. That's what they use.
You're so right, my sister. But verse 48, I love how it says, where Jesus said, however, and this is in the New World Translation. That's why I use the New World Translation, because witnesses just might actually pick up their Bible and see what it says. However, if ever that evil slave should begin to say in his heart, my master is delaying, and should start drinking and beating his fellow slave. Hello? Isn't that what the governing body and Watchtower hierarchy has been doing metaphorically the whole time?
Well, that thing you're reading from Reddit, that's beating somebody up. I mean, who does that? Even worldly people don't do that. I'll use the term worldly. They don't do that. I mean, if you do that, you're considered bad. So why? The witnesses shouldn't even think about doing it.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much what Constance and Rich were bringing out. I mean, this elder, he's supposed to be a humble leader, a spiritual, person who's supposed to be watching out for our souls. Sorry, go ahead.
No, he's supposed to be a spiritual giant. I wouldn't call him that. What would you call him? I'm sure you can think of a few terms.
A bully. A Gestapo enforcer. Yep. Anyway,
Gestapo enforcer.
Well, to me, that's what they are, because if anybody would read 30 Years a Watchtower Slave, which is still available on Amazon, even though it was published in the 50s, it was written by what you would call Rutherford's right-hand man, one of his lead henchmen, who was sent into Germany to study how to control the brothers and sisters. And because genetically, and I know it's true because I'm a quarter German, and that describes me to a T. Germans are generally easygoing rule followers. They respect authority. They like to work within the framework of what's right, what's wrong, what's expected, and everything running smoothly like a well-oiled machine. And this poor brother, William J. Chanel, was sent by Rutherford in to basically practice different mind control techniques and keep track of, like an experiment, what worked, what didn't work. And when the thorough study was over, he came back with the results, and then the results were implemented in the United States, and then it spread out to other countries. But what William J. Chanel, who eventually left and realized what he was really involved with, he mentioned in his book, he said he felt so bad because it was hurting the brothers in their heart, spiritually and emotionally, and in their heart, being treated. Basically, they were being beaten around this way and that way, chastised, just like we know the elders can do. That's why I refer to the Watchtower elders as Gestapo enforcers. I'm not trying to be flip. I am saying as clearly as I can how to properly describe exactly what they are. Anybody else want to comment? Boy, we're out of time already, and I never even got to talk about what I wanted to talk about. Anybody want to comment? Because this show is for you, even though I get frustrated. I'm sorry. Anybody want to comment? King of the Dot, Susan, Rich, Constance, Ken, Jay.
Well, Anne-Marie, I'll step in here. I'll step in here for a second. No, you still got plenty of time left. You're not running out of time. You got plenty of time left. So, Susan made a. Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah. All right.
No, I just want to make sure that I don't go too much into your time, because I don't know how much time I have to talk about what I wanted to bring out.
Well, you still got. We'll give you more. When I'm done with this comment, you want to go back to that subject? Well, we'll give you another half hour if you want.
Well, my brother, you are too kind to me. Thank you. What's your comment?
All right. So I wanted, earlier was brought up about marriage, of course, and the Watchtower and what have you. And something struck my fancy. Of course, Susan did come on earlier and say that it's very possible. Now, she's not saying for sure, but it has been brought up a number of times here in the 6 screens. And even people have been writing me concerning sisters not finding brothers, and even vice versa, brothers not finding sisters. But it's more with sisters. But, you know, it's an interesting thought. So Susan brought up the fact that if a witness, a Jehovah's Witness woman or man, but say woman, was actually dating a non-witness man, if the sister was dating a non-witness man and he was studying and he was coming along good and he just wasn't baptized yet, but perhaps they could sit down, talk to the elders and see if the brother is moving in the right direction and find they could sanction the marriage. It's very much like that in the Catholic Church. And I witnessed that with one of my daughters. She wanted to, when she left the Watchtower, she found a man that was Catholic. And so she wanted to get married. And of course, the church was saying, well, no, you can't, you have to be a Catholic to marry a Catholic man, very much like the organization's position would be currently. But she said that when she went and talked with the priest, that he said that you really should be coming to church. I believe she said she had to get baptized, but I'm not sure of that. But she had to kind of go to the Catholic Church and follow their doctrines and take some courses in their studies groups or what have you. And then she would be a suitable mate for the Catholic husband. So there had to be, priest involved. So even if the Watchtower did decide to take this position, the elders would be involved and they would monitor the situation and see if the man's making progress. But this might be the only way the Watchtower could really survive, because stop and think about it. If the sisters can't get married and they can't find a mate in the Jehovah's Witness organization, there's going to be no children. The kids are already leaving. So, I mean, they're strangling themselves with this silly policy. So it's very possible they could drop it. I just wanted to bring that up. Now, you're going to go to half hour, so go ahead and get back to your regular scheduled program.
My brother, that is such a great comment. My whole family is Catholic. I was born Catholic, baptized Catholic. And I do remember, in fact, my mom's favorite cousin was a priest. We called him Father Teddy, even though she was a dedicated witness. And we know that what you're saying is true. In fact, the priest would not only require that a person be baptized into the Catholic Church, but they would make sure that they understood all the tenets of the faith. And they would also have to go through counseling with a priest. And it's funny because everybody knows that Watchtower elders are not trained in any way in psychology or in marital psychology or whatever, whereas the Catholic priests are put through a rigorous training program, so they know what they're talking about. But you're right. And what's funny, my brother Rick, haven't we all noticed that on one hand, while the Watchtower has so many times put down the Catholic Church, made fun of the Catholic Church, actually berated the Catholic Church, told them that they were wrong and whatever, how many times that they slowly but surely and quietly behind the scenes start copying different things that the Catholic Church does that they have condemned or made fun of?
Yeah, in fact, just one other thing I can remember they did that with was back in 1947. In the Awake magazine, they condemned the Catholic Church for excommunicating people. They said that that was wrong to do that, to disallow people to not really be fully Catholic, and you're excommunicating them. Well, the witnesses are doing the same thing now under the term disfellowshipping.
Well, that's interesting you bring that out, and that is a very good point and a really great example. The Watchtower blasted the Catholic Church for excommunication in their January 8th Awake, 1947. And anybody who wants to see if this is true can go on jwfacts.com and look up January 8th Awake, 1947. And the name of the article that the Watchtower published is, "Are You Also Excommunicated?" And what they did is they quoted certain scriptures to prove to the Catholic Church that they were wrong scripturally, biblically, according to the Catholic faith, that what they were doing, excommunicating members, was not Christian. This was not a Christian practice. In fact, they said it was a pagan practice. And then 5 years later, in 1951, I do not remember, I think it was the March, I'm not sure, I don't know if it was an Awake or a Watchtower, they, in print, implemented the very harsh practice of disfellowshipping. And what's interesting is that in the article where they implemented the very hardcore practice of disfellowshipping members from the organization, they used the very same scriptures to prove that this was Jehovah's will, that this was the Christian practice, that they had biblical authority and backing, using the same scriptures that they had used in the 1948 Awake to prove that it was not a Christian practice. Watchtower, by so many examples, have proven themselves to speak out of both sides of their mouth with a forked tongue, to take the scriptures of the Bible that they say they respect and represent. They actually use God's word, twist it, and make it mean everything to make it mean. Anybody have any comments? My brother Rick, that was so
Anne-Marie.
So great. Thank you. Go ahead, my brother.
Anne-Marie. Hi, it's
Yes.
Stephen. How are you tonight? Hi. I just wanted to point out. Hello. One other distinction is this clergy laity business. They used to say, Watchtower, that we don't have clergy and a laity distinction. And then, of course, when these court cases began to appear, but this probably goes all the way back to the 60s, maybe even the 50s, very quietly in court, they began to say that they do, in fact, have a clergy laity distinction, which is why when someone comes and reports a crime, they don't have to report it because they were taking advantage of the clergy laity distinction. And that's what they would tell in the court system. But to the witnesses, they were saying, oh, we don't have any distinction. You know, we're not like the Catholic Church. But in reality, they were. And I remember, if I'm not mistaken, it was in Christ's Eve of Conscience that Raymond Franz reported on a comment that one of the other governing body members made. I don't remember exactly the context, but the statement was, well, we're set up just like the Catholic Church. So they very much mirror the Catholic Church. They have a public message to the witnesses, but in private, yeah, they're very much like the Catholic Church. Whatever has been successful with the Catholic Church is what they do. And don't forget, it even said in this latest round of the pedophilia cases, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was on Rick's show, that it was shown that Watchtower had gone out and hired the same high-powered attorney that the Catholic Church were using. I think it was several $1,000s per hour was this guy's rate. So they basically, it's really just, there's a saying about something that you hate and wind up being just like it. I can't remember the exact same, but that's really how Watchtower is. They're actually emulating the Catholic Church now.
Oh my God, Stefan, is it the truth or not? The only thing that I wish that they would copy like the Catholic Church does. Go ahead, Tira. Did you?
No, I was laughing. No, I was just laughing.
Oh, yeah. Thank God gave us a sense of humor, huh, my brother?
Exactly.
Well, I love the idea that your heart can...
Well, wait a minute.
Go ahead,
you were about to make a statement. You were about to say, I wish that they would emulate the Catholic Church. I believe you're going to say doing charitable things like running hospitals and clinics and things of that nature.
Oh, please. That's so far off of Watchtower's radar. Dream on, my brother. Yeah, I do wish, but I
one thing. Yeah, I'm in agreement with. That's what I was going to say. The one thing that they should be emulating is doing good works that benefit society. But when it comes to that, they do nothing. They only emulate the worst aspects of it.
Even though in their own New World Translation, they say that Jesus said, when I was thirsty, you didn't give me anything to drink. When I was hungry, you gave me no food. When I was naked, you didn't give me clothes. When did we not do that? And then he said, when I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. When I was hungry, you fed me. When I was naked, you clothed me. But Jesus, Lord, when did we do that? To the extent that you did it to the least one of these, my brothers, you did it to me. So in that way, yes, you are so right. I have, for a long time, until I couldn't do it anymore, I would go walking. I would walk to the local Catholic church, and they had a separate area that was the huge kitchen, and every single day I would volunteer, cleaning, washing dishes, cooking, serving, because every single day, and they still do it. They've done it for at least all the years I've been here, which is over 40 years. Every single day, to anybody who shows up, they make sure you have a good balanced meal, good fresh cooked meal, everything you could want. And they're tasty. Watchtower would never do that. They wouldn't buy you a loaf of bread if you were starving on the street. But
you know what's funny?
What's that?
You know what's funny? I don't know if this is your feeling or not. There was a video that came out where I think it was a leaked Bethel video, and they were talking about this one talk where they were talking about how friends are doing so much for Bethel remotely. And as soon as I began to hear the talk, my brain immediately said, now here they are. They're trying to find other ways that they can get free labor. Maybe they can get rid of some of the Bethelites because they have to take care of them and replace them by the remote workers. And it made me think of the question that Rick keeps asking, which is, what are some of the things that you anticipate that they're going to do next? One of the things that started to enter my mind is perhaps what they're going to do is make a list of the various kinds of roles and assignments that can be done remotely, and then blast that out to congregations all over, probably the United States initially, the congregations all over, to see if they can get more and more done by witnesses remotely. Then they don't need as many Bethelites, and they can have smaller facilities, or they can just get rid of Bethelites, or whatever the case may be. That's another thing that I anticipate happening here in the future. So we'll keep our ears open and see. I have a feeling that these remote workers are going to play a larger part than they probably ever have.
Yep. Yeah, the thing I wanted to bring out that I can't help but wish that I could see the Watchtower do, which I know will never happen, is even now I could walk into my local Catholic church and just sit there and feel the Lord's presence. I could go into the prayer room and pray and light a prayer candle. And personally, this is what I'm doing actually right now. I've had prayer candles going for days over an issue in my family. But what I love is that is very often a priest will come and approach you if you're sitting there. Are you okay? You know, do you need help? And you can go into the confessional and just pour out your heart, and you could say you've done anything you can think of. They don't condemn you. They don't ask for details if there was a sexual problem, if you were assaulted, or if you committed adultery or fornication or whatever, or watched porn or whatever. They don't ask for those disgusting, unnecessary details. They don't. What they do is they listen. How do you feel? They encourage you to pray. Basically, their thing is to help you ease your conscience and to understand that in the blood of Christ, your sins are forgiven. If you confess your sins are forgiven if you trust in the value of Jesus' sacrifice as taught in the scriptures. And of course, being a Catholic, they might say, your penance is so many Hail Marys or this or do that. But it's done with love. And the other thing that I love that the Catholic Church, the priests do, that Watchtower elders would never do, is they don't go and blab and tell and write down and keep a careful record of everything you said and every sin you said. And the elders, it's sad. You already have to talk to 3, if not 4 or 5, and they're all berating you and asking questions, and then they go and tell their wives, and they're telling everybody else, and all of your business is spread around as far as I can see, and probably further than that. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, it's amazing. I was just listening to on Berean Pickets just this morning. He interviewed a brother who just left the organization. He's in his 80s. He was an elder in his decades. He kind of told his story. I don't believe he was a born in, so it's a slightly different path to the witnesses. But he had been, and the thing that he reminded me of was that we sometimes forget is the politics that goes on with being an elder. That this elder doesn't like this elder, that elder doesn't get along with this one. And the minute that they have an opportunity to, settle a score, we're talking about on the elder body that they do. And he was saying that was the biggest reason why he gave up being an elder. He said he just got tired of all the fighting and the infighting and going back. He just got tired. And he said, I'm just going to give this up and I'm just going to continue to pioneer. And then when he started just reading the Bible on its own, he realized that the Watchtower teachings just don't line up even with the Bible, even though we probably have issues with the Bible. I know I do. And actually made him come out of the organization altogether. So, very true. What you're saying is absolutely true. It reminds me of the saying that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that's how this organization is. We are absolutely corrupted.
Truer words were never spoken, my brother, and that's why you and Eric are pretty much my favorite commentators, even though I love everybody. I love you all. But it's so true. And it's sad, and I have read stories from ex-elders, and they have related what they went through. I thought I was serving Jehovah. I wanted to help my brothers and sisters. And basically, they were used, abused, lied about, threatened. Who do you think you are? And then complaints going to the circuit overseer. He thinks that the circuit overseer is going to help him. And he's in the politics, too. It's like, you're either in the club or you ain't in the club. Like George Carlin said, it's a big club. And you ain't. If you are sincere.
You ain't.
I know. If you're a sincere, truly sincere, loving, wanting to do the right thing, wanting to help others, you will be pooped on and they will smear it in your face.
Yeah. Yeah, you want, and I remember, even for myself, there was a time when, because it's all males, no, you're always encouraged to reach out. In fact, if you're not reaching out, they'll be looking at you like something's wrong with you. You know, if you're not married by 30, or you're not a servant, at least they're looking at you like something's wrong with this guy. You know, and that's when I got to see some of the backbiting. I mean, if you had told me this, I would have believed it, but hearing it and seeing it is one thing. But I remember this one elder, I guess he called himself, pulling me under his wing, and the things that he was basically talking about, that he was dealing with the other elders, it was really something. And then we had a big split. This was before COVID, so maybe like 6 years ago, there was a big split because I guess they were merging congregations because they were losing so many people. And so new elders came in, and you should have seen the way the existing elders were trying to befriend. And even one of the sisters said, "What is this all about? Why are they all kissing each other's butt and this and that and the other?" And I didn't say anything, but I knew what it was. They were trying to get elders to be their friends, be on their side, so that if something happened down the road, hey, I can count on this particular brother to be an ally. And it was just a feeding frenzy, taking them out to dinner. Oh, he's my bed. Just hugging each other, kissing each other on the cheek during the meeting. Everybody's looking like, what is this crazy about? But that's what it is, So, and that's when I said to myself, you know what? I said, I wouldn't last 1 nanosecond being an elder, because I'm not doing all that butt kissing, and I'm not going to be dictating people's lives, and I'm going to speak freely from the scriptures. So I'm like, it makes no sense for me to even get into that position just to have to, be kicked off of it immediately. So I gave up. I quit trying.
Oh, my brother Stephen, I'm so glad you're out of that mess. I mean, God, what what you say is so true, my brother. Is there anything that you would like to add? We have about 9.5 minutes left. Is there anything you would like to add to that, my dear?
I think the only thing I would add, I've still been this question that Rick asked, which is, what do you think Watchtower is going to change next? And one of the things, and I think he even mentioned this too, I really think they're going to change the name of the organization and just be JW.org. I think their reputation is getting hammered so much in the media. Even I think this week or last week, I think it was Lithuania or one of these other European countries, how they're coming down on Watchtower. I think their reputation is so tarnished that they're going to try to rebrand themselves, and they'll probably just go with the changing the organization, just even call it JW.org. That's it.
I want to thank you, as always, my brother, for commenting. Is there anybody who would like to comment on anything anyone has said, on what King of the Dot said, on what Stephen said, Susan, Rick, Richard, Constance, Dixie, Buddy? Go ahead. Hi.
Thank you. Yeah, I just had a couple of thoughts. Rick alluded to the fact that in 1947, an Awake magazine came out and said that the Catholic Church was wrong for throwing people out of the congregation. I think they called it excommunication. And of course, now they're doing it. And well, there is a pink elephant in the room. And that elephant is in the late 70s or early 80s. The Watchtower reversed themselves on disfellowshipping. They were stating that if you knew someone that was disfellowshipped, you could talk to them, you could have them over for dinner, and show them lots of love. And about 6 months after they came out with that decree in the Watchtower, it was a Watchtower article, they reversed themselves. And when they reversed themselves, they lied to everybody. They said that Ray France, who wrote Crisis of Conscience, wrote the article in the Watchtower that got distributed to all the congregations. It was a bold-faced lie. Ray France did not write the article. The Watchtower Bible and Tract Society and the writing staff reversed themselves. So if being disfellowshipped, was bad, and then they reversed themselves. How could the Holy Spirit be directing that organization? That's all I wanted to say on that, Emery.
Well, thank you, Dick. It's really important. Everything that everybody brings out, it's so important to say what you need to say, what comes into your heart to say, because not only for those who may be listening, but who will be listening in the archives, there are PIMQs, and the PIMQ class is growing. Those who are still physically in, but mentally they're questioning, and that's a very scary place to be. When you still feel loyal to Jehovah, loyal to his organization, you still believe, but you're troubled, and you need to know that you have answers. And the Six Screens is such a great place to listen. Is there anyone else who wanted to comment? I think I have about 5.5 minutes left. Anybody else want to comment?
Yeah,
Go
Anne-Marie.
ahead.
Yeah, hi. It's Tim. How you doing? Can you hear me?
Great, Howard. Yes, I hear you. I'm just trying to see if I have any time left. Go ahead, dear.
Oh, yeah, just touching on your comments about the confession to the Catholic priest and how they don't take notes. It's an important distinction because, the witnesses, as you know, they don't like to be associated with clergy until they do. So in the courts in some of the states in the United States, they fight along with the Catholic Church to have this clergy privilege where they don't have to report CSA. But so it sounds like the Catholic Church is just as bad, but it's not. Like you're saying, they don't record these details. They're just getting confessions, which really is more of a word of a mouth thing, whereas the witnesses actually, they go into detail and they record this and keep it for years. So they're worse than the Catholic Church. But it's funny how they want to be clergy in those situations, and then they don't want to be clergy another time, or when a government wants to give money, suddenly they can become clergy again. And I just want to add one more thing, which I heard off Vern's channel, Fixing My Faith, yesterday. It's very interesting. I'd say the listeners would be pretty aware of that recent Gary Bro talk where he claimed the governing body cannot lie or deceive you. That was within the last 2 weeks he gave that talk. Anyway, it's funny he said that because Vern was saying that Gary Bro was named by a court in Montana for perjury. So he's been lying to the court. So he's telling you the governing body cannot lie, but while he's lying for them, which I just thought that is such, it's just so ironic. It's the irony, if you really paying attention to that, it's like, what the hell, that really just, that's the witnesses in a nutshell. Thanks, Anne-Marie. Good show.
No, thank you. You had me laughing, and I had to put my mute button up because you had me laughing. I swear, the way they pick and choose from God's word and pick and choose from, parts of the Catholic procedural ways in their faith or the tenets of their faith, it's almost like they have and then they're going to sit there and say with a straight face that they would not ever lie or deceive you. It's like they have their own little comedy routine going on and they don't even realize it. They are so full of BS that their whole world is brown and they think they smell like lavender. They are so obvious, aren't they, brother?
It's true. And also, actually, on the other thoughts you were talking about, being married in the Kingdom Hall and all of those stupid strict rules they have, I've noticed, I haven't been associated. I kind of really stopped associating when I was like 22, I think. And I've only kind of associated on and off over the years just randomly. But I used to notice that the people that were very strict with those rules were also lax with those rules according to whoever they chose. So it's like the chaperone thing. People would be strict with it, but then some people would get away and they'd not be monitored or anything and nothing would ever happen. Now, the marriage in the Kingdom Hall thing, if you weren't, liked or part of the in crowd, they wouldn't want that. Yet I know personally, a family member that was allowed to get married in the hall, yet while he was going out with the elder's daughter, he was actually still in a legal marriage, even though he was separate, but they turned a blind eye to that. So that's what I first noticed all those years ago when I was young. It was really all about how you acted in front of certain people. It wasn't who you truly were. And that was the initial thing that really made me stop going to the meetings. But then, you have to also recognize that their teachings are false too. Otherwise, you become one of those people that, if there's a disaster, something goes wrong in the world, you're back at the Kingdom Hall. That didn't happen to me, but I know that's the way it is. Many people leave, but you have to also leave mentally, because the next time there's a world event, they get scared and go back to the Kingdom Hall and think the witnesses were right. It should be such a thing that if something, no matter what it is, whether it's massive earthquakes or whatever, you should know that it's such a lie that you're not going to just run the Kingdom Hall and think to yourself the witnesses were right, because they're not. They're a false religion. Anyway, that is all this time. Thanks, Anne-Marie.
Oh, thank you so much. What was your name, brother, or what may we call you? What was your name, dear?
Oh, it's Tim. Tim, yeah. So I usually comment Tim
Okay.
T.
Well, thank you so much. We're out of time. Thank you. We are out of time, and I want to thank you so much, Tim, for coming in. I want to thank Stefan, Constance, Rich, Rick, Susan, Pixie, Ken, King of the Dots, and of course our brother from Australia, Tim. I want to read one comment from the story I didn't get to share. The strong ones leave. Then we help the others become strong and they leave. Rinse and repeat. Then we can warm our hands with the embers from the fire of this cult burning to the ground. I want to thank my Six Screens family, everyone for coming in. We're going to go back to Rick now and JW World News. Rick?
Well, Anne-Marie, thank you very much. You did a very good program today. Very good. Lots of people calling in, and I found that very, very fascinating, some of the subjects that were discussed. Good job. Keep up the good work. We're so glad that you have a program with us here on the Six Screens Telenetwork, Anne-Marie. Keep up the good work, as we say. Well, anyways, don't go anywhere. We got more things going on, and we're going to be having another program coming up right now called it's called JW World News. That's the news the Watchtower doesn't want us talking about. But we're going to be talking about it here tonight and also tomorrow. We have our Six Screen Sunday tomorrow beginning at 1 o'clock, and we hope you can join us then too. But anyways, let's go in now and see what we've got here. We're going to end this program. We're going to go to the next one. So stay with us. Stay on our Facebook channel as well as the YouTube channel. As we got a couple more programs still coming up tonight. We've got JW World News, and then after JW World News, it's DNC, and they'll be coming on with their program at around 9:30. And hey, how about gaslighting? They're going to be talking about gaslighting. Have you been gaslit? Does the Watchtower gaslight people? Well, they're gonna really go into the whole understanding of that tonight. So by all means, stay with us. So let's end this program right now. And then we're going to move to the next program. So thank you for joining in with Anne-Marie today.